We were saying who QB3 was. We did a video on that, and now it's
Yeah.
My
mentioned
QB3
Pickett, right?
is QB1.
We mentioned Pickett, didn't we?
I don't think. Oh, you may have brought him up at some
Yes,
point.
no, we did. I think he was one of the guys that we just brought up. We're like, hey,
We had the 4 that we did were Malik, Matt Corral,
yep,
Grayson McCall.
Shout out Grayson McCall.
Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, the draft show. Max Chadwick alongside Nick Merriam and Donny Clemons. So we're doing a scouting report that we've got a lot of requests for, and that is Ohio State wide receiver Garrett Wilson, who right now looks like to be wide receiver 1 for a majority of people in the 2022 NFL draft. We're going to go over his strengths, weaknesses, player comp, ranking on our board, team fit, so much more. But before we start this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications, please, for all new videos as well. Of course, be sure to follow our Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Boomer Bust Draft. Follow Donny on TikTok, too, at Pick and Spreads. We're on YouTube. Anywhere you get your podcast, check out the merch store. And also, as you saw in the name tags right there, you guys can follow us on Twitter, too. So follow all of our accounts on Twitter to see some takes that, we want to put on our own personal accounts that maybe we're like, maybe I don't want to put this on the Boomer Bust account and say this is speaking for everyone, because we definitely disagree with each other a lot, and we'll see if we do with Garrett Wilson. Let's go over it as well. Yeah, and Donnie's TikTok account, definitely. Garrett Wilson, so let's go over him. He's a junior, 6 feet tall, 192 pounds, former 5-star recruit, number 20 overall, the number 2 receiver in the class of 2019 coming out of Texas. In 11 games this year, he had 70 catches for 1,058 yards and 12 touchdowns. In his career, he had 143 catches for 2,213 yards and 23 touchdowns. So, Nick, when you watch Garrett Wilson, what do you like the most?
Well, it's kind of all around for him. He does a little bit of everything. I think he's mainly a slot guy who can play a little bit outside. Although he's smaller than I thought he was initially on tape, I looked at him and I thought he was going to be a guy that was over 200 pounds. He's only 190 pounds. He plays kind of like a bully slot guy with some quickness to his game. I think his release improved a lot in 2021. His body control, trying to catch balls on the sideline, looked really good. He did a little bit of everything. You see him on out routes, in routes, going deep. They throw him bubble screens, try to get him in space. He's great after the catch. Has just unbelievable footwork after the catch. He's extremely shifty. He's the type of guy who'll throw out a spin move and then he'll step one way and make a defender miss. He's just a guy you want to get the ball in his hands. But add to that pretty good route running ability, pretty good possession ability, and just besides him being pretty small, he is physical in a way that added to that shiftiness makes him kind of a threatening type in all facets of the game. And to me, he's a guy that you can put anywhere on the field and ask to do anything and will fit into any offense in the NFL. So my strength for him is kind of just he's good at everything. He's not great at one thing, but I do believe that when you look, this is kind of the same thing we talked about with Aiden Hutchinson. I don't believe that there's one thing that he is great at, which then doesn't maybe put him up in the top tier receiver prospects we've seen, because normally you get somebody with elite traits in one spot. But I do believe, above average quickness, above average strength, above average route running, above average hands, above average speed, not great speed, but, good enough in every category, produced a ton in college, and continues to improve different parts of his game. I think this year that was adding a little more physicality to his after-the-catch ability and improving his release.
Yeah, nothing really else to say there. I think he's good at everything everything you want a wide receiver to do, Garrett Wilson can most likely do at a good level. But I think he's a better separator than maybe Nick's giving him credit for. I think he might be the best separator in this draft. And like Nick said, his release improved a ton in 2021. Freak athlete, but doesn't really have top-end speed, but just makes people miss and has some of the best football moves of any wide receiver in this draft when it comes to maybe cuts, when it comes to juke moves, or anything like that. I don't think there's a wide receiver better than Garrett Wilson in this draft. I also think that he might be the most athletic wide receiver in this draft. He might be. I think he has that debate. And also, I love the fact that he can produce in the slot and he can probably play on the outside in the NFL, which I think that versatility is actually I think it's an underwhelming positive because there's some wide receivers that just can't do that, and Garrett Wilson can do that. So nothing really else to add on. I mean, I think he makes great football moves. I think he's the best separator in this draft. Him and Olave are close, but I'd probably give it to Garrett Wilson. And overall, just a really, really good athlete, and he's just kind of good at everything he does. Like, there's nothing really else to add on to that.
Yeah, for me, I think Donnie and I were talking about this before the video. I think the most important trait in receivers nowadays is basically their quickness and suddenness, which translates to their separation ability and how you get open and how much you get open. I think Wilson maybe is the best separator in this class. Like, there's a serious debate with some other guys as well, but he's a guy that, Nick, you mentioned, and Donnie, you mentioned too, like maybe he doesn't have the top end speed as, say, a Chris Olave has or a Jameson Williams has. But I think he's still basically as good of a separator just because he is a fantastic, superb route runner. The sync that he has in his routes is really, really good. Outstanding flexibility. He's impossible to guard one-on-one. Like, if you're putting a guy out there, man coverage on Garrett Wilson, like, he will burn him and make him look foolish. Great body control as well, makes some spectacular catches. Got a lot better in contested situations this year. That was a big issue that we saw before the year. Like, hey, this guy isn't a very physical player. I still think he can get a little bit more physical, which we'll get into the weaknesses, but still, he really improved in contested situations this season. Lined up in the slot, lined up out wide, still wins. Very good, I think, after the catch. Now, he won't make too many home run plays. Like, this is not a guy I think you can just throw a screen, he can take it to the house. But he can absolutely juke guys out and gain some extra yards because of that. And I think he's very good against press coverage, too. And, he's kind of a smaller receiver, but that release package that he has is fantastic. But, Donnie, what are the weaknesses that you see with Garrett Wilson?
Well, it's like you just said. Even though he improved his contesting catching this year by a good amount, because in 2020 and as a true freshman, it was really bad. But he improved it a lot this year, but it's still not relatively that amazing. Now, I do think he's good at high pointing the football. The problem is I just don't think he's good at coming down with the football. Like, whenever I watch him, I think he's very good at locating the football when it's in the air, but I just don't think he has the physicality to constantly come down with it, which that's another weakness. I think he's a bit small, but he plays bigger than his actual size is, which is weird to me. Kind of like what Nick said earlier. He weighs about 190 pounds, which isn't really necessarily it's not Devontae Smith bad, but if he could put on maybe 10 pounds, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. 6 feet tall, fine height. And like I said earlier, doesn't really have amazing speed. He's a good athlete, but I don't really think he's an amazing just runner. I think he might run maybe in the late 4.3s, 4.4s. I think that's somewhere where he'll run. So not slow, but definitely not quick. So other than that, nothing really crazy. And like Max said, I don't think he's not a guy where you just give him the ball and let him do his thing like a Kadarius Toney or a Rondale Moore. Like, he needs to be able to go out in the field and do his thing with the crane separation.
Yeah, I agree with the contested catch thing. And it was a good shot by Max. Had some concentration drops last year, and I think he really kind of dipped this year. He didn't really see it as much. He did a lot better job. They didn't really put him as many jump ball situations, but in situations where he needed to use his body control and hands to make catches, he was a lot better at it this year. So that's kind of a weakness that I've scratched off. And the more obvious ones we kind of touched on. Speed, I think a lot of people in the league think he's going to be a mid 4.4s guy. I wouldn't be shocked if this guy just runs like a 4.36 and we're like, oh, all right. I guess he's faster than we thought he was, because he just is, again, that type of athlete. And then the frame, he is a little small, but I think that's a testament to who he is as an athlete, because I think he's incredibly strong, possibly the strongest player in this draft, pound for pound, based on the way he plays. I mean, you see him knocking over linebackers at times at 190 pounds. And I think if you add that weight, the only thing I'd be concerned about, again, is that suddenness is really, really impactful to how his impulse can just kind of break tackles, cut, and get by guys. It's kind of a different. I struggle with comping him because it was, you don't see guys at his size with that type of physical makeup when they have the ball in their hands.
Yeah, I say overall, he's not as physical as maybe you like him to be. Like, I think his body control and his leaping ability make him very good in contested situations. Like, I think body control is something I should have mentioned in his strengths too. Like, this guy's body control is outstanding. But I think his overall maybe lack of physicality holds him back from being elite in contested situations. He's got okay hands, I think, but prone to some concentration drops, like Nick mentioned. And like I said before, like he's not a home run hitter after the catch. Like he can gain a few yards, but sometimes he dances a little bit too much, can stand to try to get downfield quicker than that. And I think he's better against man coverage than when you see him against zone. Like I think this is a guy who, with amazing route running, like I said before, DBs are going to really struggle covering this guy one-on-one because of how good of a route runner and how sudden he is. But he could do better finding holes, though, in zone coverage. And I think he's going to run probably mid-4.4, so not elite deep speed. He's more of a guy who wins in the short and intermediate getting open rather than beating them deep like his teammate Chris Olave. But, Nick, what do you think overall about Garrett Wilson, where he ranks for you, player, comp, team fit? What do you think about Garrett Wilson?
So we've kind of seen it in the mocks for me. He is my wide receiver 1. I'm almost always the person taking him off the board first. And I just think he's, again, I don't think the elite traits exist for him in a way that make me think he has this ability to be like a Hall of Fame type talent receiver. But I do think he has the argument to be one of the highest floor receiver prospects we've seen come out in a long time. Like, I don't think there are many scenarios where this guy goes in the NFL and he doesn't play very well because, again, I said it earlier, I think he fits into any system. I think you could stick him on the outside, inside. You ask him to run any type of route. You could be running him in motion. They do that a lot at Ohio State. You can be handing the ball off. If you're throwing it short and you tell him to go deep, he could do whatever you want him to, and doesn't really need a whole lot of coaching, I think, to fit in. If you're Trevor Lawrence, and I know Jacksonville's probably not going to take him at 1, but if you're Trevor Lawrence and you just need receiver help and you need to fill that position, here you go. Like, here's a guy that just, like, you automatically will upgrade your entire position group by adding this guy to your roster. So for me, I have him number 6 on my board overall. He's my number 1 wide receiver. Team fits. We've been mocking to the Jets. I don't know if the Jets go receiver at 4, but other teams on the board, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Atlanta at 8 is looking for a wide receiver. Who else is picking 9? Denver, they probably aren't looking at receivers. The Jets at 10 are probably the other. So probably those are the 2 teams, the Jets and Falcons at 8 and 10. I'd be looking at if he somehow falls to Washington or Cleveland and they're not looking at quarterbacks. Then again, those are teams who also need receiver help. My comp for him is a guy, again, a little bigger, who I think he plays very similar to, but he's not quite as big at 210 pounds as DJ Moore. I think when I watched him play, he looks a lot like DJ Moore to me. The way, type of routes he's most successful at, the way he runs after the catch, the way he was used in college, the way he's probably going to be used in the NFL, in my opinion, is very similar to Moore as a player, except for he is smaller. That's the only thing. And that being said, I honestly think Moore is maybe a quicker, shiftier version, and Garrett's more likely to run over somebody, even though Moore is, 18 pounds heavier than he is.
So nobody has a better route tree in this class than Garrett Wilson. I think he creates the most separation. I have concerns about his contesting catching and his actual pure speed, but that doesn't change the fact that he's still wide receiver 1 for me. He's number 10 on my board. I think there's an argument for Drake London to be ahead of him, and I think maybe there's a small argument for Treylon Burks. I know he's been getting a ton of hype right now, but for me, Garrett Wilson's still wide receiver 1 in this class. Throw him in the outside, throw him in the inside. He can fit, just like Nick said, he can fit in any scheme, and he'll be perfectly fine. But I do think he does have the ceiling to be maybe not a Hall of Fame receiver, but I think he has the ceiling to be constantly a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, which I would take easily in the top 10. So my comp for me, I go back and forth between these 2 people all the time, but I'm just going to stick with Elijah Moore, but can also play on the outside. Same frame. They both can play in the slot. They kind of play similarly. Elijah Moore is a guy we just kind of have to get him the ball when he's running his routes, and then he'll do his thing. And I think that's kind of what Garrett Wilson does, except Elijah Moore is a pure slot guy, and I think Garrett Wilson can play in the outside. That's basically the only difference. They have similar frame. They're probably going to have a similar combine. Maybe Garrett Wilson will be a bit better at the combine now that I think about it, but I'm just going to go with Elijah Moore because I just think the play styles are so similar.
Oh, Donny saying that Garrett Wilson's going to be a Hall of Famer. Wow, again. Jeez.
His comp is Megatron.
Garrett Wilson for me, number 7 on my board, wide receiver 1 as of right now. Everyone's flavor choice of wide receiver is different. Like, I tend to gravitate maybe towards smaller receivers who are separators because I think that's where the game is headed. Like, you see Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, guys who are good athletes for sure. I'm not saying they're not good athletes, but these are guys who are just excellent route runners. I think that's kind of what Garrett Wilson is. And I'm not saying he's going to be Devontae Adams or Justin Jefferson. That's what Donnie is saying. I'm not saying that. But Garrett Wilson, I think, is wide receiver 1 in this draft, one of the best separators in college football, should do well in that aspect in the NFL. Player comp, a guy who was taken above Justin Jefferson in his draft, I say Jerry Jeudy. I see a lot of Jerry Jeudy when I see Garrett Wilson, similar size, 6'1", 192. And Jeudy is just a shifty receiver, man, who is a nightmare to cover one-on-one. I think Jeudy might be a little bit more sudden than Garrett Wilson is, but I think Garrett Wilson has probably better body control and better in contested situations than Jerry Jeudy is as well. Team fit, Jets, Falcons, Washington, Browns, Ravens. Like if he falls, maybe like the Eagles, Chargers, Saints, like that. Those are some of the teams I would keep an eye on for Garrett Wilson. But yeah, Jerry Jeudy is my comp for Garrett.
We were dangerously close to having the same comp. Because those were the two I was going back and forth about. I was like, man, he really reminds me of Jerry Jeudy, and he also has those concentration drops. But I'm just gonna go with Elijah Moore.
Let's go.
Hopefully that dangerously close there, Max.
We're on a hot streak. We're on a hot streak right now. Don't let us get hot. That's what we got for Garrett Wilson, though. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Of course, be sure to follow our Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Boomer Bust Draft. Turn on the notifications as well. Check us out. Listen to us on the podcast. Rate us 5 stars. Check out the merch store. And please, again, like and subscribe to the channel. Follow all of our Twitter accounts in addition to the Boomer Bust Twitter account. And keep commenting below because this is a video that we got a lot of people asking us for. And maybe there are guys higher on our boards that we haven't done yet. But we said, hey, Garrett Wilson's been asked for a lot. So let's get this guy done. So we do listen to you guys. And there's one coming out soon, too, that we also listen to you guys because we got a lot of that one, too. So make sure you keep commenting what you want to see us do next. But for Nick Merriam and Donny Clemons, I'm Max Chadwick. Have a great night.